Hello, everyone. My name is Faith Borkowski, and you are here at High Five Literacy and Academic Coaching. I am so pleased to have my now friend, Emily Linder, on. Emily and I started to get to know each other when I began tutoring her son, Liam. Liam is presently in the 7th grade. And we started working together in 3rd grade, and we worked all the way up to the middle of 6th grade. And I usually don't hold kids for that length of time. But Liam was a different situation. And, it was a very rocky start for Liam and Emily, of course. And I'm going to let Emily give you a little bit of background about Liam so that you could understand how far he came. Hi, Emily.
Hi, how are you? So when Liam first started school, he started in a center-based program. And when he started, basically, because if he had speech issues with really heavy articulation, so it was mostly like an expressive speech delay that he had, but he could understand everything. He could always understand what everybody would say around him. So when he started kindergarten, when he started preschool, his teachers there would always say to me, there's just something else. There's something else to the story. There's like a missing thing that we're not understanding. And now we're talking how many years ago? It's 12 years ago. So dyslexia and wasn't as much talked about, I don't think, back then. 12 years ago, enough where they would say, oh, he's dyslexic. But they would say to me, everything is just backwards with him. He doesn't know his days of the week. He can't remember this. But his IQ score would always test normal. He always had like a normal IQ score. So fast forward 2 years, he starts public school and they start teaching the children to read at that point. And Liam went into school loving to learn. He was excited. He was a good kid. Like, he wasn't a problem child at all. But they started doing reading with him. And he just couldn't catch on to it. He just couldn't understand how to blend the letters, how to make the sounds, how to remember the sounds. So that's when his reading journey began, I guess you could say, or lack of reading journey at that point, because he just couldn't do it. And the more he couldn't do it, and the more he saw everybody around him doing it, the more discouraged he got, the more anxious he got, which got us into a whole bunch of other issues later on. So
yeah, that's so when I first started working with Liam, his articulation was so problematic that it was hard for me to understand him. And,
anybody.
Yes, it was really, he is a profound case, and I want to make that clear because, there's a spectrum with dyslexia, and definitely Liam was that kid. If you talked about poor phonemic awareness, it was severe. It was severe, and his articulation difficulties really were pronounced. Right. So
that was with how many years of speech? I mean, he had been receiving speech through early intervention in the school district, and then I was doing private speech with him also at home. So even with all those supports, you still couldn't understand what he was saying, unfortunately.
Right. And so you came to me, and you said that you were told that he would never read. Is that correct?
Yes. I went into a meeting. I remember, I'll never forget the day. And, you never know what chairperson you're going to get at a meeting. So we go into the meeting and I'm asking them that he needs more support for reading. He really needs it. Is there anything else he could do? I'm doing everything I can on the outside. At that point, I had used one of the centers around here, a tutoring center here. I said, okay, I had him there twice a week for reading. He'd go to school all day. Then I'd run him there. I mean, he was a first, second grader, probably going from 7 a.m. until 6 o'clock at night with all the extra support he was getting. Yes. And they said to me, well, there's only so much we could do. And at some point, it is what it is. And I was like, what do you mean it is what it is? And they said, well, if he can't get it by this grade, then that's what it is. And I was like, well, I don't understand. What do you mean that's what it is? So he's not going to read? And they said, well, sometimes. So it's like, what? You're not like, you're
so
not
basically the school threw their arms up, not really knowing, not on purpose, not to be, they didn't know what to do. And then you brought him to
you.
well, before me, you brought him
Oh, before
somewhere.
you, like a box, to the tutoring center in our neighborhood. That everyone,
Right.
yeah.
And clearly they didn't have the knowledge
They didn't
to
know what they were
know
doing either.
what to do. So I first met Liam in third grade. And, I said, okay, this is going to be something where we're both going to have to work hard. Are you prepared for this?
Well, I'll never forget that, because it was the first time that somebody actually told me that I was going to be able to be part of what he was doing. Because in the past, it was always just him going someplace and I'd say, oh, can I come sit in on a session? No, you're not allowed to come and sit in. Well, why can't I come in? Why can't they? Didn't want me to come in. So I remember with you, it was the first time that it was okay.
Yeah, right. And I always encourage parents to watch and participate and learn and understand. So not only are you helping your child, but you're also advocating.
Well,
once you understand what's going on, you're able to then advocate.
Right.
So, and you said to me, you're willing to do whatever it takes.
Whatever.
And of course, I didn't know you at the time, but you absolutely did everything and above and beyond what I was suggesting that Liam needed. And we worked together, and it is emotional. It is emotional.
It really is.
I see you choking up, but when you look back at where he was and where he is now, it's quite amazing. So I said, as long as you're ready to work with me and do the practice that is required, I can help him. And I also said, but this is not going to be quick.
Right.
This is something I could see from the assessment that this is going to take a while. So why don't you tell people where we started, Emily? Because third grade. Let's tell them
entering third grade.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was entering third grade. At that point, he didn't know his letter names. He could say A, he could say B. That's an A, that's a B. He knew that. But he had a hard time connecting the sound to the letter. So he was taught his whole life the letter names, but he couldn't use those sounds. So he couldn't manipulate the sounds. He couldn't do anything. So when we started, basically, you had to teach him that a letter name was different than a letter sound, than the sound of a letter. And then not only that.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. And by the way, when you came to me, he was getting an evidence-based reading program. And we didn't say that. So
they were doing foundations. Oh, sorry.
They were doing foundations, and he was being pulled for the Wilson program.
No, he was not. At that point, he was not being pulled for Wilson. They would not. They would not pull him for Wilson because he was in a 15-1 setting. So because of that, he wasn't eligible for any reading support, they said. So basically, even though they might not be giving the right support in that classroom, as long as he was getting some support, it was okay at that point. Because it was before third grade. It was before third. After third, it changes.
This was a self-contained classroom, and we didn't say that either. So Liam, and he started his elementary school career in a self-contained room.
But basically it was just because of his reading skills. So if we could have gotten his reading skills addressed earlier, would have been a whole different trajectory for him.
Whole different story. And obviously it was his expressive language that probably, was problematic too.
Yes.
So I'm sorry I interrupted. So as you said, he knew his letter names, but he did not connect the sounds. And I had to show him that letter names and sounds are different. And I removed letter names.
Yes, we're not allowed to use them anymore.
We're not using letter names anymore. Okay, so now it's back to you. Go ahead.
Okay, so we started with that, and then we segued into the hardest thing for someone with him, because he does have very poor working memory. He has poor working memory, so we had to, I'll never forget this. You would say, okay, Liam, say fat, say the fa without the ta. So then he would have to drop sounds and add sounds and do that all from his memory first. and then he can manipulate them on the board. And that was like the worst thing in the world for him. But he got through it and he did it. And we did it every night for like a half an hour every night. So once he was able to do that, you were able to segue him into then the blending. And that's when we started blending with him. And then that, Liam, what would happen is that he'd become, you would master something with him. And because of his working memory, and which is evident a lot with a lot of children with dyslexia, you could teach them one thing one day, and then the next day, it's like they never saw it again. It's like starting all over again. Right.
Right.
So he
and
go to
if
school.
if you remember also, we did a lot of manipulation with actual letters and sounds too. Staying away from
board.
The names, but lots and lots of phony manipulation activities so that he was connecting the letters and sounds right there. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So once he started being able to do that, what would happen is he'd go into school. And when he went into school, he would forget it because they weren't practicing that in the school. So then we would start again on Sunday. And I was doing it with at home every night, but still it wasn't, being reinforced all the time. And
also, and he had major handwriting problems. We didn't talk about his fine. Okay, so to clarify, his fine motor was off the charts in terms of really, a weakness. His spatial awareness on the page was not there. His letters were all formed bottom up incorrectly. And also just spaced very far apart, going on angles. There was so many.
Draw his letters, basically.
Right, drawing his letters is what I always say. Right.
Yeah. Right. He would just draw them from what he remembered. Yeah, exactly. He would draw them all the time. But I would say also, well, Liam, as you're doing this, because we at home, we started practicing because you had given us all the sheets. As you're doing it, say the sound. As you're doing it, say the sound. And that helped him because it helped him then when he was trying to spell, he would go as he was doing it. So that was a big help. Like me as a first-time mom, I had no idea these are things that I should have been doing with him. I had no idea about that. I just thought they were going to come home and give me the sheet and I go over it with him. I had no idea.
That's why I wrote my book. If only I would have known. So
that's why I came to you.
It came from parents saying, "Oh, if I had known," right? But it was really like in this moaning type of way, like wishing. If I had, the ability to go back in time, I would just, wish I could just turn back the clock.
Well, that's why I saw your book. I read your book and I was like, I have to find her. I have to find this woman because she has to teach my son.
Failing students, right? Wasn't it?
I read your first one.
Oh, reading intervention behind school walls. Why your child continues to struggle. Okay, that was my very first book. That's right.
And I need her. She's going to be the only one who can teach my child to read because she's the only one that seems to understand it. I remember being so nervous to call you. I was like, oh my God, because you were like my last, honestly, I felt like you were like my last ditch effort. And that was only in third grade. Can you imagine? Like by third grade, I already felt like there was nothing more I could do at that point because that's the way it was just presented to me.
Yes. So basically what we did was we went back to what he was supposed to have in kindergarten. Right. We worked on letter formation. We worked on letter sound connection. We really were doing all those basics and a lot of handwriting that people don't understand how important that piece is as well.
And that really is, because I would say to other people whose children were also struggling, well, how is his hand? How are they doing with that? Oh, well, they give him a slant board. And I'm like, okay, but a slant board's not going to cure what he needs. I mean, you don't understand. Like you need to be able to say the sound and know where it goes as they're doing it.
Right, exactly. And then we started really working on blending sounds. And just blending two sounds for Liam was like, it was so hard for him to push two sounds together because it was hard for him to say, and it was hard for him to really just work with sounds. It was pulling teeth.
Well, that's what it was. everyone always talks about like auditory processing. Is your child hearing the sound? Are they hearing the sound? And I would say he hears the sound. He can't produce the sound because of his speech. That's his issue. And they like that. It was very, I guess, unheard of at that point. No one kind of understood that. I was like, he understands what you're saying to him. He just can't do it, but he wants to, but he can't. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And so we, I had suggested working a lot with looking at what your mouth is doing, feeling what's going on in your mouth, suggesting a mirror to Liam so that he can look at himself, which he loved doing.
He loves. No, Liam loves looking at himself.
We worked on getting him to really think about those sounds. And so that he could push the sounds together. And it was a slow go. And so that was one hump. Then we had a hump of when consonants were adjacent to one another.
Oh my gosh.
Whoa, that was like another hump that we had.
I think that like took us a year. I'm kidding. Because he would get it.
Yes.
And then
another thing, people think it's just a program. They don't realize that you could get a program, whether it's print to speech or speech to print, if you don't get to those underlying core issues and practice this again and again and again and again. And some kids need that repetition beyond what the typical kid could do. And even kids with learning issues, he was, like I said, on the end of that spectrum.
100%. Yeah. I mean, and you're talking about like everyone was, if you get him into this certain program, you're going to be good. It's going to be taken care of. He'll learn how to read. But it wasn't that. A program has to be made to your child. It has to be what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and then come meet together and see what you can do. And it's the same thing. You do have to practice at home. I mean, you have to practice. You can't go to school.
I can't stress that enough. Anybody who knows me knows that I am a nut with that. And honestly, I have fired families.
Well, that's what I used to say. That was my threat. I said, Liam, do you want to get fired? You have to be
and I have those two sides to me. It's like it's tough love. It's tough love.
You have to.
Sorry, you have to do the practice, and if you're not doing the practice, I'm the wrong person for you.
Well, that's what me and Liam. It was part of our homework routine. It became part of our homework routine. No matter what he had. We used to call it faith reading, and we had to do at least a half an hour to 45 minutes a night of faith reading. That's what he had to do. And and then like no matter what, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, no matter what, summer, everything, because you have to do that, especially with children who have these needs. They have to do it.
Right. And, you're so funny. You even asked me like, it's Liam's birthday. Could we Emily, I'm not like, that's bad. But,
I know. I remember it was Christmas Eve and my husband's like, it's Christmas Eve. Like he doesn't have to do, I'm like, he does, he has to do it. I'm like, Emily, I'm like, fine. I guess like Santa Claus can bring him a pass. I don't know. And I'm being serious. That's how much I wanted them to learn to read.
Across how devoted you were and how you made this happen.
No,
I mean, I knew what needed to be done, but if I don't have that support to work on the other end, we would not get Liam where he is today. There's no way. So I want to talk about how this morphed from him just reading words into working on all these other elements, because obviously fluency was very slow, very slow.
Because it is speech also.
So he had so many things going against him. And then, of course, we worked on comprehension. And eventually we worked on writing, written expression.
Yes.
We worked on multisyllable words. We worked on
dissecting the words.
Our work together didn't stop and end with reading a one-syllable word.
No,
I want you to know,
it was a journey. Yeah,
all the way through. It was a journey.
Right.
Yes.
From day one,
Yes.
I wanted, and I think I expressed to you, I said, I want him to be able to function in society. Like he needs to be able to read. He needs to be able to write. And this is a child. I mean, like Liam is very creative. He has an extreme creative side to him. He will come up with stories upon stories. His goal, and we always used to tell him, well, you have to do this to be able to reach that, was to be able to write a story. He wanted to be able to sit down himself and write a story and then be able to read it to whoever, not like tell me, mom, this is what I want to say. He wanted to do it himself. And that was our end goal from the beginning. I knew that was his goal and that's what he was going to be working towards. And everything that we did to there would get us there, but he had to be willing. And I have to say, Liam worked. Like I'm very lucky in that Liam wanted it as much as I wanted him to be able to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like he wanted to learn to be able to do this stuff. So as he was sitting there and we would say, okay, Liam, you have to dissect this word. You might not be able to read it, but now look, you see pre, you see this, you see, circle that, underline that, box it like Faith would say. And then he remembered those skills that you taught him and he was able to do it. But it was a long journey. It was a very long journey for him too. I mean, it was, but he mastered it with you. I mean, and a lot of times we have to go back. I mean, he would master something and then you would say, what happened? And I would say, I don't know what happened. I really don't. And we would start from where we were the week before.
You have to bring it back. And sometimes that's what you do. You know, when I would gauge his progress all the time. And I would say, you know what? I think we have to take a couple of steps back. I'm not seeing what I want to see. Let's go back a little bit. And you were like, so whatever you say, you said, like just put your trust
100%.
What I was doing because you saw the results. You saw what was happening, so you knew that I wasn't just trying to milk this because
I wanted to keep you forever. You did. I wouldn't let you get rid of me. I'll never forget. You're like, Emily, I think it's almost time, and I'm like, Faith, I think we need like one more month, right?
Like it's true. I was saying, okay, end of 5th grade.
No,
no, you have to start 6th grade with me. No, we have to continue.
So scared.
And it was like, I remember when I told Liam that we were going to end
so
it.
upset.
He broke out crying. Like literally crying. Like,
I know.
No, I don't want to hear this. You can't leave me. You know, it was like. Well,
you were like our family member.
I was family, right? I was part of the family after knowing you so long. So, you know, it was quite emotional. And that's really the time when tutors work with a kid, they become your kids. Like it, and they know how much you care and want the best for them. And he, you know, I would kid around with Liam and I would say, you know, I'm going to end up, you know, seeing you get married doing this.
You probably will, You'll be right there.
But so tell people now where he is today, because now they got the picture that he was probably my most profound case in my 37 years of teaching. I would probably say that he was probably, up there with one of the most severe. And I'm not saying that there aren't kids who don't have major problems, but his speech and language issues were probably the most profound I've seen. So now he's fast forward.
Now, they stopped working with him last year, middle of 6th grade. I made her stay with him until, and then she's like, you have to go. So she fired us. And then, so then Liam continued throughout the year and he made principal's list throughout the entire year. He actually he can read fluently. 100% at nighttime. I go into his bedroom and he is under his covers reading. He loves to read. He all day, all night. I'll say, Liam, it's time to go to bed. And then I go in there and he's like sneaking with his book under the covers. I let him do that. I'm like, okay, whatever, fine. His grades are amazing. He, because we worked with writing with him also, he was able now to actually not only just read social studies homework, but he's able to go into his own room and do his own social studies homework. So he can answer the questions. He can find the answers in the content that he has. At the end of last year, we got notice that he was receiving an award. And Liam's a really good artist. So we're like, me and my husband were like, oh, it has to be the art award. It has to be the art award. Sure enough, it was not the art award. He came home and he received the Merit ELA award for his grade, for 7th grade in his
Did
school.
everyone hear that?
Yeah.
He received the English
ELA,
award.
7th grade award, which we were like, I literally almost fell off my seat when I was like, well, I thought he was joking with me. I was like, ha ha, Liam, okay. He's like, no, Ma, look, I really received it. And I looked, and now what was really great about him actually receiving that was that in elementary school, everybody knew that he was dyslexic. Everybody knew he had trouble, reading. But when he went to middle school, it wasn't as well known. Like he wasn't like known to be the dyslexic kid. So for him to receive that, it wasn't like, oh, let me just give you this award. He earned that award. Like he really earned the award. They saw that he was better than the other stuff, and he got the award. And I think that was like his proudest moment once he realized that he did it. I was like, Liam, you hit the top. I'm like, you did it. That's all there is. And now, because of all of his accomplishments, they actually wanted to move his class setting up. They want him being moved up. And I was like, me, I get very hesitant. And I was like, I don't know. But now I think he can do it because of all the skills that he's learned with you. And he is. He's
100%.
succeeding in it. He's succeeding. And now, right now, his lowest grade is 98 in all his classes at this point, right now, this year.
It's amazing. It is amazing. And I, there's a Yiddish expression, I'm felling, okay? It's like, oh my goodness. I'm like, oh my goodness. It makes me so
I know.
happy.
It's just,
so
amazing.
To hear.
This is the child that we thought wouldn't read. We did not think he was going to learn to read. I thought he was going to be doing audiobooks, and here he is. He's amazing.
Yeah. It's right.
Look
And
at
that's people, and I'm not knocking audiobooks for comprehension.
No, not at all.
You want kids to be able to read for themselves. You want them part of the world.
Well, I just safety wise, I kept my family, like I would say to my sisters and my mom and my aunt, I would say, well, what happens if there's an emergency? He's not going to know what to do. He can't read, like he's not going to be able to know where to go, directions, this, that. That was my fear. And that was like, I need him to be able to function. And he's much better than functioning. He's like, as you said, killing it. He's killing it right now. He's doing it.
He is absolutely killing it.
And his confidence.
Yes. And exactly, his confidence is soaring.
Oh
and
my God.
When I met him, he was so nervous. He had, so anxious and nervous, and he was always the sweetest kid.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes me so happy that we saved his life. You and I saved.
I say that to you all the time. I say to you, Faith, you saved his life. You really did. Because I know where we'd be. Unfortunately, I do know where we'd be because I see other children there right now who didn't get what they needed. But you saved his life. You gave him a life. You gave him a life. You really did. Honestly.
makes me so happy. But let's give parents some takeaways, and anybody who's watching, teachers, parents, some takeaways. I have a couple. Mm-hmm. So it's not enough just to get an evidence-based program.
No.
All right. So when parents fight at IEP meetings for a program, these programs have to be implemented, and it needs somebody who's flexible enough to be able to pivot and move with the program, or get rid of something, or say, you know what, this isn't working, or be able to modify. It's one thing to have fidelity to a program, but it's like you have to know when something's not working. Rules in Wilson were not going to work for Liam at all.
Exactly. And when you stick to the rules, you're never going to make progress because there's no bending in those rules. So they could say you're stuck on step 1.5. For years, you can be stuck on that step. Instead, take a step back and let's see what happens. Let's try this instead and then go back later. You have to be able to bend to that.
Right. Going back to the foundation. A lot of parents don't want to see their kids go back to writing letters and saying simple sounds. They want you to just jump into grade level work and just put a Band-Aid on it a little bit to get them through.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do that.
Right.
If I see that there are holes we have to take steps back in order to move forward. So you have to be willing to, even if a kid is in third grade, you have to be willing to go back to the basics. Wouldn't you say that was probably a key feature?
That was the key thing with Liam, because everyone, like you said, was just trying to put like a little Band-Aid on it. Like they would say, okay, well, Liam has great listening comprehension. Okay, that's great that he has listening. He needs reading comprehension. He needs to go back and be able to do that first. He needs to be able to write these words before he can read them. He needs to be able to say the sounds before he can read the sounds. And exactly like you said, write it, OT, OT, OT. And Liam hates handwriting. Like he hated that because like you said, he was functional in how he could draw his letters. He had to forget all of that and go back to the beginning.
A lot of times, you know, schools say, well, they really don't need handwriting because they're going to be doing everything on a keyboard anyway. But if kids are in elementary school, it is worth it to put the time in to relearn how to form letters. You just have to try, because that solidifies a lot of these sounds. The movement, the brain is connected to the hand. The movement of that is so helpful. And it's more helpful.
I had no idea.
Yeah, and it's more helpful than moving tiles. Like a Wilson board is fine and it's practice, but there's nothing like handwriting.
No, exactly.
I think, you know, to kind of.
You said Liam couldn't tap. Liam's not able to tap sounds, but you said to him, don't tap, make dashes.
Yeah, don't tap. I don't care.
Don't tap. No, just do dashes. Make your dashes. How many sound dashes do you have? You have 3 sound dashes. That, I mean, and he still to this day, if he can't spell a word, I say, go do your sound dashes. And he does it. Right. And those are the things.
So, you know, and I try to train kids to do that kind of work so that they could be independent. So we went back to the foundation. We got rid of letter names, right?
None at all.
And then we also used decodable books too, right?
Oh, yes.
To reinforce. So we didn't talk about that, but
that was huge.
That was huge. So parents, teachers.
None of the Fontes and Pinnell books, because those, has to be decodable.
Not level books. Also, I said no level books. And you were so good. You told the school, I don't want him in level books. You know,
I said he can't do level books because he would sit there and just tell me about the pictures. And I'd say, I don't want you to tell me about the pictures. Look at the words. So anything they sent home, I gave him a decodable book instead. And I said, this is what you're going to do. And I was so sneaky. I'd put the decodable books that I did at home in his guided reading bag. So the teachers would see them the next day. And finally they were like, okay.
Right, exactly. And the funny thing of it is, if, you know, Liam was told to guess at a word or use the picture, we basically, the 2 of us said, don't listen, you know, we had to tell him, don't listen to whatever you're being told. Ignore it, because this is what's going to help you. And that's what he did.
Liam's a rule follower, so it was hard for Liam. Liam likes to follow rules, so for him to ignore what they were doing, I had to show him. I'm like, Liam, look on the computer. This is what they say about this, and see how they're saying it's not good for you. You need to do what me and Faith are telling you. You need to do it that way.
Yes, and then we moved into multi-syllable words, and because we can't just leave off at 1 syllable, because kids need to know how to read a multi-syllable word. And then we started with writing. Once his spelling was better, once his handwriting was better, we started with writing, because time is limited when you're doing intervention. So a lot of times parents will call me again and they'll say, could you work on writing? And I'm like, well, let's see what these underlying skills look like. Because no, we don't just jump into writing, because these are the types of things that hold kids back. You know, they need those underlying skills to free up their brain in order to be able to even think about planning a piece of writing.
Exactly.
And so now, Emily, did I use anything with you other than the framework of planning, brainstorming, doing a brain dump, planning, organizing?
We used the graphic organizer, like where we had the different boxes. And then in those boxes, he would have to do his ideas. And he still uses it now. Even when he does like his social studies, he had to do just an assignment on, is Christopher Columbus a villain or a hero? And he sat down and he had his thing like he used to do with him, the main circle in the middle, and then the boxes, we called it a brain dump. Do you remember? We used to call it a brain dump.
That's right. We started with our brain dump.
That's right. What we did. Exactly. Yeah. We went with that.
Right. And then we worked on planning and organizing. And I told you, once they do this, spelling could go out the window, mechanics will go out the window, but don't worry, because then we will circle back to some of that. And we worked on sentence structure and expanding sentences, what a sentence is, as opposed to what a phrase is. So remember that? So
because Liam would just write. He had no sense of any punctuation.
Sentences.
We did it all with
so
him. Yep.
We did it all. And it wasn't with any particular curriculum either. Like right now, a lot of people are hopping on a bandwagon of, we have to get a new core curriculum that's knowledge-based and so forth. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, but you cannot throw out what we did with strategy work. People say, oh, strategies don't matter. Are you kidding me?
It's basically
he's using strategies today.
Yeah.
And the organizers and the wording and the language to help him to be able to do this type of work.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
That I left out, Emily? That
no, I just really want other parents to know that no matter what anybody says, if you really sit down and you're able to work with what you have at that moment, and you don't need a specific program, you don't need like all the fancy, like even you say to me, I said, what do I need to get to bring with you? You say nothing, just he needs nothing. He needs a dry erase board. That's all he needs. And with that, your child can learn to read with the right strategies, with the right, going back to basics.
Organization, right. There was structure. I always had a structure. There was always building blocks.
But you don't need a named program. You don't need a named program. No. You just need phonics. Honestly, that's what you need.
You need, somebody who knows the organization of language and how to build on that. And when
I never give up.
You don't give up. You don't give up. And clearly we see that when you persevere and when you're determined, anything is possible. Really that this child with profound speech problems got the English award in 7th grade. If anybody ever tells me that things can't happen, I'm sending them to you, Emily.
I will tell anybody, you can do it. Your child can do it. They really can. And don't ever take what somebody tells you as the fact. Just because someone says there's nothing more we can do, there's always something else you can do to be able to help your child. Because you're the only one who's going to advocate for them in the end, and you have to.
Exactly. And I believe in putting the power into the parents' hands. And because you were able to watch and participate and reinforce, you knew exactly everything I was doing, every step of the way.
It's like notes. Remember my notes?
In a room and say, no, you're not allowed to watch. No, I want you to watch. I
have notebooks full of notes I took. I used to write every word you said. You used to laugh. I would write every single word you said down as we went along so that I could then use that same terminology when I was practicing with him that week. The same words.
I would put you up against any certified teacher, Emily. And I really mean it, that you now at this point, and most of my parents do, most of the parents I work with either end up becoming tutors. I've had parents who go on to get OG certified. They want to tutor. So I have some parents using the word WASP now to tutor other kids. I have so many parents who learn from this just from watching me work, that it inspires them to want to help other people.
It just makes sense. What you do makes sense.
It makes sense. It makes sense. And one day I plan on retiring. So
No, you can never retire.
I'm like, I'm not going to do this forever. So my hope is that people I work with pay it forward. They
Always.
pay it forward in their own way. Not everybody is going to become tutors, but like you're doing by coming on this live with me, paying it forward.
Yeah.
I have other parents who are so dedicated to the cause, planning things and doing things, and bringing me into SEPTA meetings to speak. And, they do whatever they can. But before I work with anybody, especially teachers, and they know who they are, I'll say, if I'm going to help your child, I expect you to do everything in your school to pay it forward.
Well, exactly.
And they do. And they do.
Well, that's what now I have my younger son who's in first grade, and all the parents who are facing this right now, I say to them, listen, this is what you have to do. You have to start here. Forget about benchmark levels. Don't worry about what he's a B, he's a C, he's a D. I said, just throw that out. This is what you need to get. I show them the yellow books. I can't remember the name of them.
What, the IC SAM books?
IC SAM books, which I have all of them now. I said, you get these and you sit there, you do that with them. And I guarantee you, they're going to get more out of that than the reading bag. And parents they want to be able to help their child. They do. They just need to know how.
They just need to know how. So on that note, we're going to finish up, but I want to do some more of these, but for, Dyslexia Awareness Month, you are the person I thought of first to share a story like this, because if Liam could do it, there is hope for every child out there. We just have to find what works and to be flexible. And what I'll tell parents, one last point, when you are at these IEP meetings fighting for your child, from one year to the next, things change. Things change. A teacher changes, a program changes. That's why you really do want to try to get together to make change so that they can see that it's not just one kid. It's easy to write off one child. And not that we ever should. Obviously, we weren't writing off Liam, but
they might.
We need to group together. There's power in numbers, and let people know that their voice matters. But when you just do this at an IEP meeting, you're going to be doing this forever, fighting. So, all right, we'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much for letting me come on.
We want to change, really change. I'm recommending my book. I'm going to plug it. If only I would have known. Because if you give that as a gift, give it for Christmas or Hanukkah, get it. Because if you really want to help, give it to your pediatricians, give it to preschool teachers, daycare workers, give it to librarians, because that book, I really feel so strongly about it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you.
Change lives. More than other books I've written, and I love my other books because that was my story. That was my memoir. That's my life. But the last book I wrote, I feel could really change lives. So, and you heard Emily wishes that she knew these.
If I had only, if I had known them when we first started, I really feel the journey would have been different. But you have to go through your journey and learn, and then, like you said, you pay it forward and help other people to be able to.
You just move forward. All right, everybody, have a great day. This will be recorded, so you could share it with anybody. There'll be a link for it on YouTube, and it'll be on Facebook. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.